Chris Paul got ejected by his arch nemesis referee Scott Foster, but then things got real crazy. So CP was playing his old team, gets called for a foul on Kevin Durant. Then he imitates a flop, saying KD was faking it. But as Durant steps to the line, Paul goes to talk with Scott Foster. Conversation seems normal at first. Then Foster gets a little heated. Then he clearly says, that's enough, that's enough. Chris keeps talking, so Scott calls him for a tech. Now, CP is real heated. Points and says something to him, so Foster turns around and ejects him. On another angle, CP says, you're a several times because it is personal. But why? Most people know they've got a beef going back for years, but they didn't show this angle. You have to go to the Suns broadcast to see this. When CP is being held back by an assistant coach, he clearly says, he's talking about my son. He's talking about my son. What? Why would a referee be talking about Chris Paul's 14-year-old son? It sounds crazy, but this is what Chris told reporters after the game.
It's personal. We had a situation some years ago, and it's personal. The league know, everybody know, it's been a meeting and all that, and it's just a situation with my son, and so I'm okay with a ref talking, saying whatever, saying just don't use a tech to get your point across.
So that adds another layer to it. The meeting Chris is talking about happened around 2016. After years of bad blood, CP met at the league office with Scott Foster, an exec with the referees, CP's own father, and his coach at the time, Doc Rivers. Chris Jr. would have been 7 years old. The idea was to squash the beef, but it didn't work. But first, today's video is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. I play Underdog almost every night, actually, just to have fun. Win or lose, it always makes watching NBA games a lot more enjoyable. My favorite game to play is called Pick'em. You just pick higher or lower with your favorite NBA players, and you can 20x your money in a single night, but you will definitely have fun. Are you not sure who to pick? No problem, I've got picks for you. First up is Anthony Davis's points. I'm going higher than 22.5. Also, I just want to watch this game and have a pick on it. But AD has never gone under this number against the Sixers while he's on the Lakers. Next up, Ausar Thompson. Dude is always active on the boards. We're going to do assists and rebounds. We're also going to go higher. Now he plays one of the worst teams at guarding his position. And best of luck if you're tailing those picks. Check out this map to see if Underdog is available in your area. But always use promo code AMHOOPS if you are first signing up. Not only does it help the channel a ton, but they will double your first deposit up to $100. Again, promo code AMHOOPS. Chris was one of the original players to bring his kids to games, have them courtside, pre-game, and during interviews. But CP was getting a reputation of being a jerk on the court, and other NBA players hated him for it. Maybe Foster knew this and told Chris he was being a bad role model for his son. There is no way for us to know unless somebody leaks it, but CP did accuse Foster of bringing up his son again. This whole thing reminds people of the CP Scott Foster beef that connects to the darkest conspiracy theory of all time. You can trace the beef to the most embarrassing moment of Chris's career. In the 2009 first round, his Hornets played Carmelo Anthony's Nuggets. Denver beat them so bad in Game 4. It wasn't just the worst loss of CP's career. The 58-point beatdown was the worst loss in playoff history. And who was reffing that night? A young Scott Foster. After that, CP's teams lost 13 straight playoff games whenever Foster was working. But that mostly went under the radar until Chris said something to the media in 2018.
I don't know, it was a lot of fun. I got a tech tonight. Yeah, Scott Foster at his finest. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That was a regular season game with the Rockets, but Scott Foster at his finest went viral. Then everybody started to notice. Other players called out Scott Foster in the media. James Harden blasted him after regular season game in 2019. But in 2020, Chris was on the Thunder. Before Game 7 against the Rockets, reports say Foster walked up to Chris and reminded him, "Remember, I also reffed your first Game 7 against the Spurs where you lost. Don't you forget it." What kind of personal vendetta stuff is that? So overall, Chris has a 3-7 73-17 record with Scott Foster in the playoffs, 73-56 without him. That is a crazy stat. But you know what's crazier? When you look at CP's individual numbers, they're almost the exact same. Yeah, he scores one fewer point, but he actually gets less fouls called on him with Scott Foster. What is really going on? Why do his teams lose so much? I think CP's issue with Foster gets in his own teammates' head. Dude goes in the media talking about Foster, it becomes more of a thing. For example, the Suns were playing the Bucks in the NBA Finals. Game 6, Milwaukee could take the series, but Scott Foster was reffing. So when Chris was asked about it pregame, he said, if I was a betting man, 11 games in a row, meaning my teams have lost 11 in a row against Scott Foster. Bet on the Bucks. Who says that? Then before the game, cameras caught Chris talking to Foster for minutes on end. So what happened? Sure enough, Bucks win, Phoenix eliminated. Scott Foster again. Or was it Giannis scoring 50 points with 14 boards and 5 blocks, somehow hitting 17 of 19 free throws to win Finals MVP? Yeah, that might have had something to do with it. But when you see and hear your team leader obsessed over who's reffing the game, it gets in your head. Athletes are superstitious. You think Chris knew that Foster reffed the biggest blowout of his career and never wanted to see him again? But there is a bigger conspiracy behind the scenes. After CP got ejected against the Suns the other night, Matt Barnes tweeted, "Dear NBA, how many more times are you gonna allow Scott Foster to referee CP3? He's effed Chris over and whatever team he's on, and you'll know this and keep allowing it." Which is a great point. If you know that a player and a ref hate each other, just don't put them together. But they can't do that because it would look like one of their referees can't be impartial. That's a problem because Scott Foster was involved in the biggest ref scandal of all time. In the early 2000s, a ref named Tim Donaghy realized he could make money by betting on games. But he didn't actually bet. He would sell the picks to a bookie for a flat fee. But he got busted by the FBI. So the feds went to NBA Commissioner David Stern and said, hey, heads up, we caught one of your refs in a mafia gambling ring. He says the other refs were involved, so we're gonna have him wear a wire to bust everybody. Commissioner Stern was like, oh, great, thanks for telling me. Then he goes and leaks the story to the media before Donaghy could wear a wire. Stern then tells the media, nope, just Donaghy, he was a rogue ref, nothing to see here. Because if the other refs were involved, it could kill the league. To this day, FBI agents are pissed the NBA did that. But we do have their investigation file. It turns out, from October 2006 to April 2007, when Donaghy admitted to betting on games, he called Scott Foster 134 times. The only other person he called more? His mafia gambling connect. But you might say, oh, NBA refs call other refs all the time. No, they don't. The most he called another ref, not Scott Foster, 13 times. So to recap, 150 calls to Donaghy's gambling connect, Thomas Martino. 134 to Scott Foster, 13 to other refs. What is going on? Now, I am not saying that Foster was involved, but it's weird. And since then, Foster has had an amazing career. He has reffed 24 finals games and is a regular in Game 7s, which means the NBA considers him one of their top referees. Either he is amazing at his craft or he's got some serious dirt on the NBA. Of course, that last part is just a conspiracy, but the Chris Paul situation brings up these questions. There was a ref named Eric Lewis who got busted recently using a burner account on Twitter. He replied to fans who criticized his calls, and people believe he was forced to retire because of this. But Scott Foster gets promoted after a betting scandal? Look, I am not one to defend Chris Paul, but dude does have a point with this one. But speaking of hate, Spurs fans are turning on Greg Popovich. Victor Wembanyama is losing Rookie of the Year to Chet Holmgren right now, and Pop's coaching is in serious question.